Welcome, folks.
Greetings, everyone. We'll start in about 30 seconds here. All right, 10-second warning. All right, we're live. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Imperati, and I'm the facilitator for this December 7th, 2021 Hayden Island Marine Drive Community Working Group. You are familiar with our introductory slides, so I'm going to go through them quickly. And you also have the slides in the packet that was emailed to you. So the next slide shows us that that closed captions are in English and Spanish, and they are available within Zoom and YouTube, as you will see on the screens on the bottom links. The next slide tells us about how to access the closed captions. So if you go to the lower right, you'll see the CC icon with closed captions below it. And if you click on that, you will be able to get to our closed captioning. You can also see that we have ASL interpretation going on today, for which we are grateful. With regard to Zoom participation, the ALS interpretation is available. You just turn on your video, and as you know, and if you're on the phone, you're going to dial 9 to raise your hand. And please mute yourself when you are not speaking, so the quality of the recording is as crisp and clear as possible. We're going to talk about the agenda next. And we're going to have the usual introductions and icebreaker. The main focus of today's meeting will, in fact, to do some preliminary design options overview. Then there's going to be an interactive session and some pulse polling to see what your thoughts are on some of the preliminary design options that are going forward. And we'll end with the other ways to engage with the process by way of the websites and online open houses, what have you. The next slide is our meeting agreements, and this is really about exploring versus debating and being respectful of each other and the folks going forward. The next slide is our the actual introduction. So what we're going to do here is ask each of you who is affiliated member of the team here, meaning you participants, to give us your name and affiliation. And then the icebreaker is, if you were an element of the IBR project, Interstate Bridge Replacement Project, what element would you be? Would you be a bridge, the main line, an arterial, transit, interchange, public art, or my favorite, would you be a road radar gun? So we will show the screen for everyone and hide the slide, and we will go on, and I will call on you the best I can here. And let's see how this is going to work, because I have to move some of my fun-filled things around, and that is becoming difficult. So Michael, you're first, buddy.
All right. It's a privilege. Michael Strauss, affiliated with the Jansen Beach Shopping Center on beautiful Hayden Island. And if I were some element of the IBR, I'll be boring. I'll be a neighboring property owner, because I know what that feels like.
Thank you much. Amy. And you're on mute, Amy, the usual on mute warning, which we all do several times a day.
Sorry, thank you. Hi,
Amy Cooney, and I am a neighbor residential on Marine Drive. So I am representing a group of people on Marine Drive, and I guess I would be maybe one of the exit ramps or something on the bridge, just right next to the bridge.
Perfect. Tom.
I'm Tom Dana, and I live in the manufactured home community on Hayden Island. And let's see, what would I want to be? I like that exit ramp thing. That maybe entrance ramp thing. So I don't know. I'll be an entrance ramp.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. And your other brother, Tom H.
Hi, Tom Hickey. I'm the outgoing chair of the Bridgeton Neighborhood Association. Live on the south side of the bridge. I would be that guy who stands on the corner and goes, "Slow down."
Perfect. Perfect. And Dr. Corky Collier Jr., welcome.
Hi, Corky Collier with Columbia Corridor Association in the Multnomah County Drainage Districts. I'm thinking I might be an intersection, hopefully not, because that's where all the crashes happen.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Welcome. Ellen Churchill. Ellen.
Yeah, I'm the representative for Hayden Island Neighborhood Association, known as High Noon. And I guess I'll be an exit ramp.
Perfect. Tom.
Tom number 3 here, Tom O'Connor, resident of Hayden Island, floating home off Tomahawk Island Drive. I'll be an on-ramp.
Perfect. Eric.
Hi, this is Eric Molander. I'm land use chair of the Bridgeton Neighborhood Association, and I'll be an intersection.
Great. Welcome. Robin.
Yeah, I'm Robin Smith. I would like to be a bike lane with a great view. And also, for whatever reason, I cannot find the packet of information that got sent out. I did study it, and now I can't find it again. So if you can resend it while we're talking so that we have that to refer to, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now, Robin.
So it's on its way. All right. That concludes the introductions. And also we have members of the IBR team with us. And as you all know, there's 8 program partners. We have C-Trans, TriMet, City of Vancouver, City of Portland, RTC, Metro, Port of Portland, and the Port of Vancouver. So they are, some of them are able to join us with us tonight, and we'll be able to provide support. And Kayla, if you can go back to the slideshow, and we'll talk about community working group framework. And as you know, we are one of several work groups. There's the active transportation, the downtown Vancouver, and the multimodal commuter work groups. But of course, the Hayden Island Marine Drive work group has the best looking and most intelligent members on it, with the best looking and most intelligent facilitator. I think that goes without saying, but bears repeating. Let's remind ourselves of our role of the particular work group. And it's to provide feedback on specific transportation issues for the program's consideration. And you can get background on our role there at the website interstatebridge.org/advisory-groups. So with that said, we've gone through the introduction, and I appreciate your patience with that. And overall welcome. I'll now turn it over to the IBR technical lead, Brad Phillips, who's going to walk you through a series of slides to give you sort of a big picture overview. Then we will go through a more in-depth detail of the various options. Then we'll go to polling and discussion. And then wait till you see our closing dance number. It's fantastic. So Brad, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brad Phillips, the design lead for the program, and I want to be a radar gun. Next slide. I'm going to go through these first slides very quickly. I think everybody's seen them before. I want to save as much time as possible to get into the details. The big thing that we're trying to do in the end with December, I guess it's the end of 2021, is finalize our design concepts and then get them into screening, where we will early next year collaborate with our partners and stakeholders to refine the IVR multimodal solution. Next slide. The program is responding to changes that have occurred over the last decade or so, and making sure that it is meeting our current thought process for the goals out of this project. Next slide. We are looking at the areas in different geographic areas. I'll quickly go through those. The program does include transit, walk, bike, and roll, and vehicular improvements throughout the corridor. Next slide. So at the last meeting, this is just a really high clip of what we heard. A dissatisfaction with the current interchanges on Marine Drive and Hayden Island. We heard a lot about unsafe conditions, hard to merge, short acceleration, deceleration distances, things like that, that would fit into that category, I believe. Lots of traffic that makes it difficult to move around. The lack of transit, and therefore the desire to add transit to our traveling options. And then pretty difficult conditions for the walk, bike, and roll communities in and around Hayden Island and over the bridge. So we asked you, which type of interchange would you like, or do you like, or lean towards, I should say, a full, half, or no? Which interchange landing point do you lean towards? Which local access bridge concept? And the most common answer we got was currently unsure. And we're not surprised by that answer, because we still have a lot of information to share. And we were starting to do that in this meeting. Next slide. So I'm going to quickly go through these options. These options have been selected by all of our agency partners. We brainstormed quite a few ideas and narrowed them down to what I will present on the following slides. Go ahead and next slide. The transit options that we'll be looking at are, and I think we briefed on these on our last meeting, but there's 4 light rail options, 3 bus rapid transit options, a combination of bus rapid transit and light rail, and an option that just looks at bus on shoulder. The various options are essentially the same on Hayden Island. There's always going to be a station on Hayden Island. Of course, it could be buses, or it could be light rail, still to be determined. Most of the variations, I should say the dedicated BRT and LRT to Hayden Island is the option where LRT gets extended to Hayden Island and bus rapid transit gets extended to Hayden Island, and there would be a transfer facility on the island. So that is one option that is somewhat different than the other two. But in our thinking right now, there is, when we're looking at these next options, there's not a significant difference between whether, from a physical standpoint, what it looks like on the ground, not much difference between a light rail and a BRT station on Hayden Island. Next slide. Just very briefly, and I believe this is repeat of what we shared before, the options for the water crossing of the Columbia, the big bridge, a curved alignment from the LPA, a straighter alignment, and a stacked alignment. Cross sections are shown in the bottom. Again, I don't want to go into details. I did that last time. Next slide. These are 2 different interchange options in Vancouver. And the main difference is trying to solidify whether there are ramps between the Oregon side and downtown Vancouver. Otherwise, the interchanges will include all of the ramps that are there today. Next slide. And then going north through Vancouver, interchange improvements to improve the weaving on and off the freeway due to closely spaced interchanges. And every crossing would be enhanced with better pedestrian and connections to east-west crossings across the corridor. So getting to the meat, Hayden Island and the Marine Drive interchanges. We're looking at different options that consider different ways to access Hayden Island, whether that be by walk, bike, or roll, transit, and car. All options include replacing the North Portland Harbor Bridge. That's the bridge that spans between mainland of Portland to Hayden Island. And then future design work, we have got a lot more work to do regarding the details of the multi-use paths and all of the non-motorized connections, but it does have the intention to connect across the river to the 40-mile loop trail. Next slide. So these are the options that are being considered. This is showing two different variations of the full interchange option. And I'm going to back up and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to do a brief overview of these options. And then Tom, right after me, is going to dive into these in a lot more detail. So I'm going to hit these as a really fast overview because we're going to dive into a lot more detail. So just a quick moment on the legend. The red line is transit, and there's two red circles. Those represent the stations. The one on the left is the existing Expo Road. The one on the right would be the proposed station on Hayden Island. The gray in the middle is the proposed highway interchange and what the ramp systems would look like getting on and off to Marine Drive and Hayden Island. The blue is arterial streets that might be expected to be a little bit heavier traffic where the ramp terminals connect to, versus the magenta is more local streets, expected to be fewer vehicles, or at least not directly affected by the ramp interchange. And green is the shared use path. Shows the 40-mile loop as well as the proposed connections across Hayden Island and the connection across the bridge. So on the left is the interchange that is what we call the full folded diamond interchange. That is the version that was from 2013. The one on the right is it's what we call the full tight diamond interchange. And this most closely represents what was prepared from the 2011 record of decision. In this case, it's updated because of the replacement of the North Portland Harbor Bridge. The full tight diamond interchange has ramps from Washington that will connect to Jansen Drive, and it has ramps from the Portland side that would connect to Hayden Island Drive. Both of these options have one intersection on Marine Drive. And they include a west arterial bridge and the reconnection of Pier 99 Street under the corridor that connects the local streets between, say, Bridgeton and Hayden Island without getting onto the I-5 corridor. Next slide. These are two half interchanges. So the half interchanges are between Washington and Hayden Island, and they would connect to Jansen Drive. If you were arriving from the Portland side on I-5, you would exit at Marine Drive, where there are two intersections that you would go through, a little bit different interchange configuration, and then get on a west arterial bridge, the western arterial bridge that would get you over to Hayden Island. Again, transit is shown in red. The shared use path is in 2 different configurations in these. The difference between these 2 is the option 3 only includes 1 arterial bridge on the west side, and option 4 includes an additional arterial bridge on the east side. And that arterial bridge on the east side connects directly to Vancouver Way, and would provide a connection between under Pier 99 Street, under I-5 connecting to Expo Road. So it would provide, that arterial bridge would provide the local access to the Bridgeton Canton communities without needing to access I-5 or MLK. Next slide. This is the no interchange option, which means there's no interchange on Hayden Island, and therefore to access Hayden Island, all traffic would go to Marine Drive. And again, there are 2 arterial bridges, an east bridge and a west bridge. Okay, any questions? One thing I covered. Yeah, go ahead.
So Brad, tell me more about the interchange that is going to be on Marine Drive. Option 1 and 2.
Probably would have been easier to see a screen. Can we wait for that question? Because Tom, you're going to be able to answer that in a little bit more detail, right? In your slides?
Yeah, we'll
and
show
then,
that with the interchange.
Brad, designing this allow for us to eliminate, reduce the congestion at Marine Drive or coming from the port.
So Eric, unfortunately, your audio is breaking up. You may, for a second, have to shut off your video and then repeat, and so we're to save you some bandwidth, and then we can perhaps hear you better, and then you can come back on. So just if you go down to the micro there should be a camera and it says stop video, and if you can hit that, we'll give it the college try again. And recognizing that really the opportunity now for questions is to make sure you understand that there are really 5 potential options here. The specific details of it, Tom will pick up here in a minute.
And while we wait for him, I did want to add one more thing, is that our next step is going to go through screening. And in that screening process is when we are collecting a lot of the data that will show us the differences between all of these interchanges. So we completely understand that traffic is being changed, and we need to know how that change of traffic is being addressed in each of these options, and that the amount of traffic could play a significant role in the choice. We don't have that data right now. So that's coming in December and January. So I know those types of questions are going to come up. All the interchanges are being completely rebuilt, so we have the opportunity to start from scratch, if you will, to determine the number of turn lanes and intersections designs that we would need to get it to function. But until we do that analysis, we don't know what that looks like, or we don't know what the data is telling us right now.
All right, Eric, were you able to solve that problem? And perhaps you could repeat your question for us?
I'd be delighted to, as long as you can hear me now.
We can.
Tom's giving me a thumbs up. I appreciate that.
Perfection.
Yeah, we've been polling the neighborhood using SurveyMonkey on what are the significant problems that we want to have solved in the IBR system. And the the foundational is, well, it's got to stand up during an earthquake, right? And so that's a requirement, and it's an absolute requirement. The second to it was that people are saying that they really want to have the problem of the interchange at I-5 and Marine Drive for traffic coming from the port in the port area onto I-5 solved. So many people that have been longtime residents said, well, that's what the flyover or the braided ramp would do. And we just want to see more on that, because when we think about the options, what the neighborhood is telling us is that there are certain problems that have higher priority and other problems that, gee, it would be great to have, but we'll have to fit them in as best we can. So, Brad, you're shaking your head, so I'm glad that we have an understanding of that.
So any quick responses, Brad, to Eric's comment question?
Yeah, I think just a repeat of what I was just saying, we need to do that traffic analysis to understand those differences, and clearly they are important. So I appreciate that feedback, understanding the priority of that.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin.
So how are each of the options that you're offering now better than the ones that we've already spent millions of dollars to create? So how is the half west arterial bridge option 3 and half west east arterial bridges 4 better than option 1 folded diamond? Like, I don't have a context to figure out what I'm even looking at, to figure out what would be the best option to solve some of the issues for people who are on Hayden Island, some of the people who are on Marine Drive, some of the people who are trying to get to Vancouver. We have this huge bottleneck. And I think part of this process is trying to figure out how to solve this bottleneck besides replacing the bridge. So how do we best do that? And is the traffic study been ordered? And when should we expect to actually see it?
The traffic's being analyzed as we speak. We're going to start seeing some numbers in December. Our team, our IBR team, is working on it. We just don't have the results back yet, but they're working on it. How are they better is an interesting question. And again, the screening is going to tell us what better really means from a data perspective. But one of the things that I've been thinking about is how can we make the whole I-5 corridor smaller? And I think we heard during the previous planning that was a big concern, how big the interchange was over Hayden Island. And the complexity of a lot of those ramps make it very large, both over the island, over North Portland Harbor, complicates the main river crossing as well. And so in an attempt to simplify all that and make it smaller is where the half and the no interchanges come in. And now we need to test it to make sure that that actually is meeting our goal. If it is providing all the connections that we want it to connect.
Sorry.
And would provide the traffic flow.
Sorry, the half and all of the nomenclature is really confusing. So which two options did you say are better? Based
I don't know
on
which
what
one's
you just
better.
said. Well, so you said the half does blah, 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 and the other one does blah, blah, blah. And there's too much information going on too quickly, at least for me to comprehend a lot of what's going on. So I know that at the end of this meeting, we're going to be asked to vote on something, and I don't have a clue at this point. So Brad, if you can convince me which one is the better option for people who live on Hayden Island, for people who live around Marine Drive, and for the people in the Portland, Vancouver area, then I have a sense of which one I should choose and which one is going to be the better option.
So Robin, that's certainly a fair ask. And we are about 40 minutes away from being able to dive into the specific evaluation of each of those questions. so that you can have as much information as possible. I think it's important to note that the real technical analysis is happening now. And when Brad talks about screening, they will take all of these 5 options and look at how they perform under the various scenarios. And that information will be considered before any decision is even close to being made. So I'm going to beg your indulgence for just a little bit of time, and I promise to come back to you if the questions that you asked can be answered tonight. They will be. Is that okay? Or would you, if you have a follow-up, that I certainly understand.
I just think it's important that we be clear about what each of these options means, because I don't feel like I have that. Just to know that there's 2 intersections versus, you know, connection to this doesn't tell me at all what that's going to feel like or look like driving through it.
We get it. That's fair. Let's see what we can do. There may, in fact, to be candid, be limits until we get actual performance data to see how they perform. So, Corky, you're up next.
Thanks. This is sort of a detailed question, but it applies to several of these, so it's kind of high level also. If I'm going southbound, this is regarding the Marine Drive interchange. If I'm going southbound on MLK coming from I-5, right? So I've left I-5, I'm going south on Martin Luther King, and I want to get over to Bridgeton, or let's call it the Jubitz problem. I want to get over to Jubitz. Right now, what I do is I do a quick exit ramp off to the right and loop underneath MLK and head back over toward Jubitz. I don't see that on these drawings. Is that gone in these drawings, or is that still there, just not showing up?
That is proposed to be gone, and it would, I don't think they're shown in these drawings, but a carryover from the previous planning added some ramps to MLK further east, sort of near the Jubitz property. And those ramps would down onto the local streets and circulate back around.
I believe those ramps were just to go toward I-5 from Jubitz. I don't see them going toward Jubitz from I-5, but we can get into that more detail if you want later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Before we transition to the detailed conversation, I'm going to ask Kayla to share the screen and talk briefly about slide 25, which is this skeleton matrix that we sent you and suggested you print it out, because we recognize the inherent complexity in this particular analysis. The best we could in the time allocated for the task is to put together what we're calling a matrix of design options. And as you will see, the left 2 columns have matrix of design options in black and then in green elements. And then across the top we have the various elements that go into each of these 5 options. And A is the Marine Drive interchange, and this is the number of intersections that would happen under options 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that Brad just summarized. And then column B are the Hayden Island interchanges location of the intersection. C is how do you get to Hayden Island. D is local connectivity. E is shared use path, and F is this transit station access. So for instance, under the existing conditions, what this shows is there's one intersection that in column A, which is Marine Drive interchange. There's one of them. The location of the intersections, column B, are currently Center Avenue and Hayden Island Drive. How do you get to Hayden Island? There's an I-5 northbound and I-5 southbound. Local connectivity is 3 places: Hayden Island Drive, Jansen Drive, and Pier 99 Street. The shared use path right now is, narrow and indirect, and the transit is local. So that's what the existing conditions look like. Just to give you a highlight of how we're going to go through the details of these various options, if you look at the third column, which is A, the Marine Drive interchange number of intersections, you will see that the full interchanges only have 1 intersection between them. The options 3, 4, and 5 have 2 intersections. We are going to provide you the distinguishing factors from the baseline, existing conditions, for each of those boxes you see there. You have a fully completed version of this that we suggested you print out. Tom will walk you through those things, but to the extent you had a chance to print them out, taking notes as we go would be great. So what Tom is going to do next is take you through option 1 and talk about each of the columns: Marine Drive, Hayden Island, access, local connectivity, shared use path, and transit. And he's going to do that for all 5 options. It is going to be data intense. The focus is to sit back and take in just at the best level you can and know that you will have the opportunity to dive into the specifics going forward. So I'll pause briefly to see if you have any questions about the matrix, which I now see has been popped into the chat for your review. And if there's any other questions, we'll take them. If not, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Bennett, who's the IBR technical lead, and he's going to be discussing the elements of the 5 options. Amy.
One thing that I'm looking at in all of these options, besides, my ability to get on and off and around the highway, is the ability for large trucks to get where they need to go. And the city has said that they want these large trucks on Columbia and Lombard and not on Marine. And I'm just wondering, as A, B, C, D, E, F, if we could add, and I think that a lot of people from Bridgeton and, not the Hayden Island people, but sort of half the people in this conversation are sort of interested in that fact as well. Which one of these, if it would just be a quick, off the cuff from your professionals, would allow large trucks that are either going north or south on I-5 or that are coming from the port to have an option to get to, the airport in that direction to get, let's see, what direction is that? East, without going on Marine Drive, because we've already talked, I don't want to repeat what we said last time, that Marine Drive is supposed to be a neighborhood collector, not a truck highway. But, if any of these options are going to help that. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Thank you. We'll go to Tom next. O'Connor.
Yeah, thank you. So I like the matrix layout. I've reviewed the materials, understand it. Looking forward to the review here. So when the traffic data is done, or when the data gathering is done, what other columns are going to be on an updated matrix? Because ultimately, it looks like with the 5 options, we're going to have local bridge access from Hayden Island to mainland Portland. All 5 of the options include that. But what could somebody maybe speak to what columns will exist when the data gathering is done? What's column G? What's column H? Because I know I spoke up last time quite a bit about the traffic data being critical and potentially swaying my view of which option is best. So what columns are going to be there after that's done?
Brad?
I can't even begin to recite them. There's quite a few. We're looking at how each of these perform for freight, how they perform for traffic. Are there differences in transit? Are there differences in shared use path and the quality of the path? Going through the interchange, we're looking at environmental impacts, especially as it pertains to crossing the North Portland Harbor. Equity, how do these change our thoughts as we think about equity and climate? I can't even remember how many different screening criteria we're looking at. It's quite a few.
Well, it looks like you just began to recite them, so give yourself some credit. I think, but I'm imagining some of that's going to be amalgamated into columns, not all specifically broken out that way. So some sort of, I guess that would just be my point. It sounds like this group isn't going to be regathering, but what is is there a way to sort of put a traffic column that includes several of those factors, which were traffic specific, because not everything you said was traffic specific. So that's just my thought, and I'm ready to move on.
Thank you, Tom. All right, the fourth Tom on the call is going to now, as Tom Bennett, and he is going to begin this detailed dive. And again, to the extent you can have that big matrix out, that will help keep track all in one place versus the various slides Mr. Bennett will have to go through. So Tom, without further ado, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Sam. And it's good to see a healthy representation of Toms in the meeting as well, I have to add. So if we move on to the next one, I'll start with the interchanges, or how you access I-5. And as we go through each one of these four elements for the options that Sam mentioned, we'll also pause at the end of each of the elements for questions, because there will be a lot of information that we're going to go through here. And we want to make sure that we can make this as clear as possible for everyone. So in option one, there's one interchange on Marine Drive, which means that all the ramps for northbound and southbound traffic getting on and off I-5 to Marine Drive would come together at one signalized intersection, which is what the big kind of blue circle is on the diagram on the left-hand side. So that's showing all the lighter blue is all the ramps kind of coming together onto Marine Drive, and that's one signalized intersection. On Hayden Island, which is to the right of the drawing, so north is to the right on all of these drawings. On Hayden Island, there are two intersections. So southbound traffic, and actually maybe at this point, why don't we click to the next one, because that'll show some arrows that'll pop up. This might help explain it. So southbound traffic coming on or off of I-5 would come to an intersection, and this is the circle at the top of the island at Tomahawk Island Drive and Center Avenue, which is the east-west street. We don't have it labeled there, but that would be the one that, or sorry, not east-west, but the north-south street, the one that goes intersects at the dark blue circle at the top. Traffic coming on or off I-5 would get off on the east side and would come to the intersection on Hayden Island Drive, which is the dark blue circle, kind of more on the lower right-hand corner of the diagram. And so to kind of start to explain the differences between these, the traffic concentration or getting on and off of I-5 in this option for Hayden Island would happen on Hayden Island Drive and Center Avenue, adjacent to the Jansen Beach Center. And let's go to the next one, please. So now option 2, which is also a full interchange on Hayden Island. The interchange at Marine Drive functions the same exact way as the previous one. It's one signalized intersection. However, the interchange on Hayden Island is split between Jansen Drive on the south side of the island and Hayden Island Drive on the north side of the island. So northbound traffic gets off of I-5 and comes down to Hayden Island Drive. Northbound traffic getting onto I-5 gets on from Jansen Drive. And these are the two dark blue circles kind of on the lower half of Hayden Island, or the east side of the island. And then the two circles on the upper side is traffic, northbound traffic coming off of I-5 would get off on Jansen Drive, and traffic getting onto I-5 moving south would get on at Hayden Island Drive. And if we go to the next slide, I think that will show, I may have jumped ahead a little bit here, that this shows the arrows of those on and offs for Hayden Island onto and off of I-5.
So
And
Tom,
let's move on to option 3. Oh, yep.
let's pause for a brief second. We'll see how this works. We have some interim questions before the normal question period. Let's see if we can take them so people can carry along, but we may have to call an audible and ask you to write the questions down. So let's see how this works. So the queue is Robin, then Tom H, and then Tom O''C. So Robin, you're up.
Hi, okay, so when I asked for colorful drawings that would show what we needed to see, we got closer to that, but I wanted to see also what is the existing, and I see that there's in yellow, there's something about existing, but yellow isn't portrayed here. So I can't figure out what we currently do versus what you're proposing. And I think that's the crucial question here. And then the other one is, it says shared use paths are in green, and I don't see any green, so I don't even know where those are. So if you could help me with those two pieces, that'd be great.
Sure. So those are all components that will be later elements in the presentation. We have one singular legend that applies to all the diagrams. Right now, we're just talking about the on and off traffic from I-5. The yellow is actually specific to light rail. So but that will show up at the end of the presentation when we talk about transit station access.
Robin, you're on mute.
Oh, Robin.
So I still can't figure out what it is that we're talking about without seeing the existing. That was my crucial question on the months ago when we asked. And so every one of these drawings should show what do we currently do? Because otherwise I have no idea what I'm looking at. What pieces already exist versus what are you adding? I can't tell.
Unfortunately, we don't have an existing conditions diagram. We couldn't add it to this because this basically is on top of what's there now. So we'd be looking at one or the other. But that's a good point, is that we do not actually have the configuration as it functions today.
Well, Tom, one question may help this and may not is, what of the existing condition is going to stay, if any? I mean, it's not, I'm hearing, if I'm tracking this, a lot of this stuff is all going to be rebuilt, right?
Yes. Yeah, because both bridges going over North Portland Harbor, as well as obviously the river, would all be rebuilt. So none of the highway infrastructure that exists today would remain. But I do get your question that what we're not showing is how it currently functions today.
Okay. Well, maybe Brad, if you're still with us, folks, Brad is on vacation, but is plopping in to help us tonight. And maybe Brad, if you can see what's on your laptop there that's being powered by a hand cranked generator somewhere in the woods, you can see what existing condition document you have, and we'll see if we can get it up, Robin. So the order now is Tom H, Tom OC, and then Corky.
But I would answer that real quick if whoever is sharing their screen, if in the background you could bring up Google Maps, is probably the best thing to show. But go ahead and answer the other people first.
All right. So Tom H, you're up. Thanks for your patience, buddy.
Well, I had exactly the same question that Corky has, which is in option 2, the westbound option to turn off of the southbound I-5 has been removed. And I imagine that's an oversight because nothing else on the mainland side has changed except for the deletion of those 2 exit ramps. So if you were to toggle back to option 1, you would see that there's an upward turning leg to connect to Marine Drive.
That's a graphic oversight.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought, but I'm glad to confirm it.
I'm surprised none of us caught that. Option 1 and option 2 on Marine Drive are exactly the same and should be represented by what you see here on the screen in option 1.
Thank you.
I just grew a few gray hairs trying to figure that out. Thanks.
Good job. Good catch,
back
Tom.
to option 2?
Okay, Tom O'Connor.
Oh, yes. Okay. Our bad. Okay. Yes. Tom O'Connor.
Yeah. Well, Corky, at least you're still growing hairs, so good for you. So I'm a Hayden Islander, but I'm really struggling with the graphic, this one intersection Marine Drive. This may be because it's all the same color. I'm trying to figure out what's a flyover, what's coming under. Is this kind of like some of those Washington interchanges, under SR 14 or Interstate 5? I can visualize what you have on Hayden Island in both options very easily, but is there a better or more detailed or larger graphic of the Marine Drive interchange to show us that would maybe help my understanding of what's going to be happening there? Because Hayden Islanders spend a lot of time with Marine Drive interchange as well, and I'm not getting it by this graphic.
You want me to take that, Tom?
Sure, go ahead.
So that style of intersection is called a single point urban interchange, or SPUI. It's the same interchange design that was a carryover from the previous planning. So if you can access those documents, it's the same. The example that I am familiar with is up in Lacey, Washington. If you ever get up that far, is that where it is? No, gosh, no, that's the wrong one I'm thinking of. There's not a whole lot of them around, but it's a way of combining all of the ramps into one intersection instead of 2. It's just an at-grade intersection. Of course, I-5 goes straight through without stopping. All the ramps come to one signalized intersection.
Hey, Brad, this is Casey. The 2 examples nearby are 78th Street and 99th Street in Vancouver, those intersections with I-5. Okay, so that gives me a visual, and I'm very familiar with those intersections. They're interesting intersections. So, thank you.
All right, Corky.
Well, you easily answered my first question. Thank you. The other question is follow up what I asked a little while ago. How do you get to Jubitz? So if I'm going south of Marine Drive, there's a ramp there. Does that swing around and connect with Union Court?
Yes.
Okay, then I just, I didn't see that connection. I thought it was missing. Thank you. That explains it all. That's all I need.
Thank you much. All right, Tom, you're up again. As in Bennett.
Okay. I have Google Maps up on my computer if I'm able to share, or were you, Kyla, able to bring it up? Would you like me to share that?
Yeah, if you have it pulled up, that would be great. So you can navigate. That'd be awesome.
Have you made Tom a co-host? Looks like he did. You did. Good job. You're way ahead.
Me. So now we're pointed in slightly different direction here. North is up here, but here's the island. Here's northbound traffic on I-5. Comes off on the east side of the island, and that's also where the northbound traffic gets on as well. So it's kind of it's the North Hayden Island Drive. You're just off of that on the east side here. And let me do this with the area. I don't know if this is more helpful or less helpful for people. But these are the ones that kind of come off by the Chevron and the Taco Bell there, just north of the Red, or just south of the Red Lion. Then for southbound traffic getting off of I-5, as well as southbound traffic getting on I-5, it comes off at, similar to the first option that we showed at Center Avenue and Tomahawk Island Drive, right adjacent to the Jansen Beach Center right here.
Eric.
And is there any questions
So,
on
Tom,
existing? Okay.
Am I correct in saying that for option one, the interchange to get onto I-5 North on Hayden Island is going to be basically the same as it is today?
Going north?
Right. So that's right. So you're looping around.
Get onto Hayden Island.
Right. So you're on Hayden Island. You've just finished your shopping. You're going to go back home to Vancouver. Is it basically the same interchange structure as we're seeing today? For option
Very similar.
Basically, yeah. And what I might do is I'll stop sharing now. And if we can go back to option one, we can just show that.
And while they're doing that, the rest of your question, Eric, is do people declare their sales taxes?
Actually, that's not, but basically, if that's not no change from existing conditions, no engineering change, do we think that it will still create the same kind of hazardous merge and congestion that backs up all the way to Columbia?
So there is some refinement to what happens on Hayden Island Drive, but essentially the general location of where those ramps occur on the island are in the same location. I don't know, Brad, do you want to add to that?
I can help Brad too.
Answer Eric's question.
Go for it, Casey.
So the ramps that you see that are, I guess, crisscrossing over Jansen Drive, that's the Marine Drive ramp coming on and the Hayden Island ramp going off. Those are braided ramps. And so for one thing, today's condition is a weaving section between those ramps.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, those have to crisscross traffic. In this case, those are separated. For the traffic getting on to northbound I-5, the ramp is much longer, and we have auxiliary lanes that we're planning through this section as well. And we still have yet to design the lane balance and the total lanes for the project, but it's a much safer condition.
So that'll be an important point for you to really draw out and convince the neighborhoods that this is the case, because that is also identified by our neighbors as one of their key concerns. It's the safety of that entrance onto I-5 North on Hayden Island, and how it has a cascading effect all across I-5. So love to see what the models really show us on that.
Thank you, Eric. All right, Mr. Bennett, back to your presentation.
All right, thanks, Sam. I think we can move to option 3 then.
Yep.
So in option 3, this is a half interchange on Hayden Island, and the interchange on Marine Drive has 2 intersections. So what that means is on Marine Drive, northbound traffic getting on and off of Marine Drive comes down to an intersection on the east side of I-5, which is the dark blue circle on the lower left-hand side. Traffic getting on and off of I-5 southbound uses the intersection or the dark blue circle on the west side of I-5 at Marine Drive, just below the Expo Center. So what you have here is basically you're splitting the directional traffic up amongst 2 intersections on either side of I-5, rather than having it all come together in one larger intersection in the center. Now, the traffic coming to Hayden Island from the north or going back to the north to Washington has direct access to Hayden Island via the ramps you see here in the 2 circles on the south side of the island that come down onto Jansen Drive. So if you're coming from Washington southbound, you can get off and get directly to Jansen Drive onto Hayden Island. If you're leaving the island and going north to Washington, you also use Jansen Drive to get onto I-5. If you are coming from or going to the south from I-5, you would get off at Marine Drive and then use the arterial bridge, which is the dark blue line that goes over the North Portland Harbor, and then it comes over the harbor, goes over the top of Jansen Drive, and then comes down to an intersection at Tomahawk Island Drive. And in this scheme, Tomahawk Island Drive would be extended from the Jansen Beach Center underneath I-5 to Tomahawk Island Drive on the east side of the island. And so that's what that, we'll talk about the magenta lines, which are the local streets next, but that's where that ramp is going. So basically, people coming or going south from Oregon or south of Hayden Island would use Marine Drive and then the arterial bridge to get to Hayden Island. And if we go to the next slide and see that in the arrows there. So the bi-directional arrow there is on top of that arterial bridge that would provide access to Hayden Island from Marine Drive.
Mr. O'Connor.
It looks fun.
Yeah, thank you. So on this particular option, I mean, Jansen Drive is very much a local street and not one of our better ones in this particular area. I'm sure you're all aware, but it looks like you've straightened it out. I mean, there's a lot of impact on businesses that are there now versus Jansen Drive sort of coming around the way it does now. So just a question, I guess, about, I mean, would Jansen Drive be flattened out here and the freeways flying up over? Because right now it's a significant dip coming under the freeway, and I know it's all going to be new stuff, but the configuration of the local streets and the way the arterials are is really, really different besides the freeway changes. Just if you can speak to that.
Yeah, Tom, we haven't completed our design, of course, but that what you're talking about is our intention. Especially because of this, now that we're replacing North Portland Harbor Bridge, there's more flexibility in what we can do with Jansen Drive, widening it, straightening it, raising it up. So that is our intention. But honestly, we don't have all of the details yet of what that specifically looks like. That's going to definitely be our next step, is really diving into that type of detail.
Okay, thank you.
Eric. You're on mute, buddy. No problem. If you,
I've
there
got
you
it.
go.
All right. So just a question for clarification. If I've got a truck coming from the port, getting onto Interstate 5 northbound into option 3, they would come up Marine Drive. They would come to the intersection there that's in the top left-hand portion, cross over I-5, then come to the second intersection, take a left-hand turn, and then take that arterial onto Interstate 5. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. So you're basically doubling the number of interchanges that they've got to go through, correct?
That's the difference from the previous ones that we showed, whereas there's 2 intersections that they would go through to get onto I-5, as opposed to the SPUI that Brad described before, which was the single interchange in the center.
Got it. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. Robin.
So going south from Vancouver to get back to Hayden Island, options 3, 4, and 5 don't include any access. We got to go all the way south to Marine Drive to get to the island.
If you're coming from Vancouver,
yes.
In option 3, no, you can get off. You would basically get off. It's the blue arrow you see in the upper right blue arrow. You would be able to get off I-5 directly onto Jansen Drive.
What about going north? I'm looking at the chart. It says access to Hayden Island, and it mysteriously only includes one side for options 3 and 4. Doesn't include any access, as far as I can tell, from looking at the first 2 options, which have I-5 north, I-5 south. You know, I'm trying to make apples and apples instead of apples and oranges.
Right. Okay. So coming from Vancouver, you can directly get off I-5 onto Hayden Island. Leaving Hayden Island to go back to Vancouver, you can directly get onto I-5 from Hayden Island. Both of those ramp locations, or those intersections, are on Jansen Drive at the south end of the island. It's the traffic coming and going from the south, or from Oregon, from Portland, that would use Marine Drive and then cross over the arterial bridge, which is where the double-headed arrow is on the drawing you see on the screen right now, onto the island. So this is, in fact, essentially half an interchange on Hayden Island, not a full interchange like the previous 2 options that we showed you.
So in labeling this, the West Arterial Bridge is really I-5 North, except it's a separate bridge, but that's how you get here. Coming from
That's how
south.
you get there from the south, correct?
Right. Because if you look at your chart, suddenly I-5 North just disappears and you don't know how you're getting from one spot to another. You've labeled it West Arterial Bridge. So that's what that is.
That's correct. You're
Okay.
basically making kind of an S shape. You're getting off of I-5 to Marine Drive, turning left on Marine Drive. Then at the next intersection, you turn right onto the arterial bridge, which takes you directly to Hayden Island.
And when you say intersection, are we talking about lights? Are we talking about a roundabout? Are we talking about a double loop from hell? What are we talking about?
Those would, so the blue circles on here indicate signalized intersections, the dark blue circles. That would be a signal for each of those. And I don't know, Brad, is there any condition where that's not the case?
No, they're all assumed to be traffic signals, yet to be decided how many lanes and how they operate from a traffic analysis standpoint.
All right, thank you, Amy.
One question, I understand about Hayden Island, how that works in option 3. We have the Marine Drive split now into 2 intersections. In your opinion, being traffic engineers, I'm thinking 1 more than 2, that's 2 lights I have to go through, but should I be thinking, you get off on the south and those people scoot away very quickly. You get off on the north, those people scoot away, and kind of separating them actually causes less bottleneck than keeping it together. What can you give me that? I mean, I know you're going to do a traffic study later, but just a quick analysis on keeping them together. And then when they're together, all I see is this braid and the full diamond. Do they all have their own, maybe they all scoot away quickly in the first option because they're on different levels. So just a quick overview on option 1, when there's that full diamond, how they can get traffic dissipated, and then when it's separated, how traffic can dissipate.
None of us want to speculate on that. We need the traffic analysis numbers to understand. That's why we do that type of analysis. It'll tell us how many lanes are in each of these, how long it takes to travel through both of these intersections. So it's just way too hard to speculate. They are both traffic signalized intersections.
So separating them, okay, so now I'm sure, I think I'm understanding. So you're not separating them to help traffic, you're separating them because we have a third little bridge that you call the quick little west, just to hop over. So you're just separating them physically because one of them needs to use that bridge, but you're not separating them to help traffic. We'll figure that out later.
Yes, I think the answer is correct. The West Arterial connects into that intersection and it makes it a simple 4-legged intersection, right? Like a normal traffic signal. It does align with traffic going to southbound I-5. So those vehicles just go straight through an intersection. That's helpful as well.
Okay, so we're not going to base any opinions really on 2 or 1 at this point. We're hopefully just want the fastest one. And then the opinion is based on whether or not the Hayden Island people get off at Marine and hop over and how many interchanges they have. Maybe. According, that's, you don't have to answer that. That's fine. Okay.
All right, Tom H. and then Tom D.
Well, I guess this is that question you're not ready to answer yet, but actually it's more of an observation than a question. I'm thinking about Eric's 60-foot tractor trailer coming from the port and sitting at the 1 light and then having to make that hard left at the 2nd light to get on northbound I-5 at a what at least in this drawing is a fairly severe turn. I can't help but think that that's a very slow turn for this 60-foot truck, and worry that this particular model is going to create intensive freight jam ups because of the hardness of that corner that you're asking the trucks to make. But obviously, there's where your traffic studies are going to answer.
I would say you're maybe reading too much into this graphic level. We are doing everything we can to design those intersections closer to 90 degrees, like we normally would. This is just a graphical depiction and shouldn't be used to represent an angle like that. But
Sure.
all of our intersections would be designed to accommodate the large trucks going in and out of the port. That's a requirement in this type of interchange. So,
But is it true that an intersection is necessary? I mean, a signaled intersection is necessarily slower than some kind of a cloverleaf ramp for a truck to negotiate?
a cloverleaf, I'm not quite sure. I mean, cloverleafs can be quite a distance to travel around. So it's a little bit of speculation, but again, that is the data that we're trying to gather so that we do understand the time that it takes for trucks through these differences, right? One intersection versus two.
All right, thank you. Tom Dana.
Yeah, is all of this on the Marine Drive side, not on Hayden Island? Is all of that after the Interstate Avenue and Victory, whatever that is, Victory Boulevard entrance to I-5? Does that all happen the same way it does today? Going both directions, getting onto Interstate Avenue or going on to Interstate Avenue, going south, Interstate Avenue coming north to get onto Hayden Island or get onto I-5. Are those all happening the same way they are today?
Specifically at Victory, you're asking, Tom?
What?
Are you specifically asking that question for the Victory Boulevard?
Interstate Avenue and Victory Boulevard, which essentially is Vancouver Avenue coming north, because it hooks around there, around Delta Park there, and gets on there. So are those going to be exactly like they are today?
Yes, we're not modifying Victory Boulevard.
Okay, so the Interstate Avenue will go under a tunnel under there and then merge with the traffic from Delta Park. So that bottleneck will still be there.
I can't answer the bottleneck question, but the design is this.
Well, that's the whole point of this whole thing, is to solve the bottleneck problem.
Well, if you're talking about the bottlenecks that might be created due to traffic on I-5, that will be different. If you're talking about something that is associated with Victory Boulevard and the ramps from Victory, that's a different question than what is the bottleneck due to traffic on I-5. We will understand traffic analysis of all of that.
That's confusing to me, what you're saying. It sounds like double talk to me. I don't understand that. I mean, there's a huge bottleneck there. If you've ever tried to get on I-5 going north from Delta Park, it takes a long time.
So what I'm understanding here, and see if I can help this, it sounds like we need to define what is meant by bottleneck and bottlenecks. It sounds like there are bottlenecks that are caused by I-5 traffic. And it sounds like there's bottlenecks that are caused by the local traffics getting to and from these various intersections. Brad, I heard your answer to say is that the IBR study is focusing on the traffic from I-5. Are the partners from the city of Portland simultaneously looking at what is going on Victory and these other streets that Tom Dana just suggested? So you're looking at the package at the end of the day.
IBR will look at all of that traffic flow, and we will know how it operates in the future and be able to answer those questions with our traffic analysis.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like that's as much as we can do in the moment. Corky Collier, you're up.
Yeah, I
Can I just add,
ahead.
Corky, can I just add a little bit more to that before you get going and then pass it back to you? During the last part of the CRC, the design actually had for northbound Victory, auxiliary lane, I believe, came on there. So Tom, I think the question that you have is, was there bottlenecks started there and then also downstream, which would be the next one, which is Marine Drive, and then the next one, which is Hayden Island. Each of those had, whether there was an auxiliary lane dedicated to that or whether it was a merge, we addressed those during the last part of CRC. And we'll do the same thing as far as the analysis goes during this project. We're just not there yet as far as the lanes on the freeway yet. Does that make sense?
We'll wait and see.
Okay.
So Corky, you're up.
Thanks. So I want to go back real quickly to the point that was made just a little while ago about trucks, heavily loaded trucks going through two intersections will be slower than trucks going through one intersection because you're going from a stop, trying to get up to speed, and that we all know that happens rather slowly, and then you have another stop and you're going up to speed again. So that's a problem. Hopefully the modeling will account for the trucks being so much slower than cars, I'm assuming. But my main point here, though, and this applies to all the options, or this question applies to all the options, but especially for option 3, 4, 5, is in the previous incarnation, the initial plan was for a flyover ramp from eastbound Marine Drive to northbound I-5. So that would not go through any intersections. It's just flyover ramp, go northbound I-5. That was taken out of it toward the end as a cost-saving measure, but the design still included the option for that flyover ramp to be built at some time in the future. When I look at option 3 here, that really, like I said, for all the options, I still raise that question, but especially here because I worry about us getting really congested with these two intersections. And so I'm wondering, A, have you considered a flyover ramp here for that's eastbound Marine Drive going to northbound I-5? And B, will you be including that option for a future flyover ramp with any of these designs?
Casey, do you want to take the first shot at that?
I can take that. Corky, thanks for the question. I remember we worked about 9 months on that, and then in 2009 that got phased out. But all of our subsequent designs, as you mentioned during the CRC, accounted for the potential for that ramp to be connected in the future. It isn't something that we've looked at so far, but I think it's a great comment that in our designs, I think if we wanted to or needed to look at that, I think it certainly is something that, again, we could look at. Whether it should be included in the base or in future, that's a good discussion and question.
All right. Tom, did you have a new question or just your hand up from last time? Okay, no new question. So listen, I'm going to call a facilitator audible here just because of the time and ask that we pick up options 4 and 5 and discuss those before we then move over and talk about the columns that deal with local connectivity and the other related issues. So Mr. Tom Bennett, why don't you take up at slide 33, which Kayla has dutifully teed up for you.
Okay, I think these will go a little bit quicker because they're similar to the previous. And in fact, Kayla, if you want to go one more slide, it'll drop the arrows on there. So as you can see in option 4, this is essentially functions the same way as option 3 does. And the difference is what we'll actually talk about later. The difference with option 4 from option 3 is that there's this local access bridge on the east side of I-5 that would connect Bridgeton with Hayden Island, and that'll be the subject of the next group of graphics that we'll talk about. But essentially, this functions the same exact way as option 4 does regarding the I-5 on and off ramps. And then if we go to option 5, so this one is different. This is the option that has no interchange on Hayden Island. And so what happens here is the Marine Drive interchange, which is two intersections, as we saw before, is where all the traffic coming to Hayden Island would get on or off I-5, and then it would use one of the two arterial bridges, which are the two parallel dark blue lines that go over North Portland Harbor. So two bridges connect with those intersections at Marine Drive, would take traffic across North Portland Harbor, and then they would connect with the new Tomahawk Island Drive extension that goes up the center of the island underneath I-5. So all traffic coming to or leaving from Hayden Island would use the new Tomahawk Island Drive. All of that traffic would come from or go to those two intersections on Marine Drive, and from there they would get on to I-5. And if we go to the next slide, I think we'll see the arrows that explain that. There we go. So the double-headed arrows are showing the two bridges going across the harbor to Hayden Island, and then the southbound traffic coming or going utilizes the intersection on the west side of I-5 on Marine Drive, and the northbound traffic coming and going uses the intersection on Marine Drive on the east side of I-5.
Hey, Tom.
And that's, yep. Go ahead.
There's another correction we need to make on this graphic. The east arterial is one-way northbound.
Okay. Okay, so that arrow would only be pointing to the right. We wouldn't have the arrow pointing to the left on that one.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
You're talking about
Okay.
you're talking about the east arterial bridge. The arrows there only go in one direction, not two, as currently shown.
Yeah. So from the intersection on Marine Drive on the east side of I-5, that would be traffic traveling northbound, either to get onto I-5 going north or to go across the bridge to Tomahawk Island Drive. If you're going, if you're leaving Hayden Island, you would use the bridge on the west side of I-5.
Okay. Eric, you're up.
All right, so again, let me give you a use case and I'll step through it as I would be a driver coming from Vancouver. I'm heading over to go shopping at Staples, and I cross over Hayden Island. I exit at what is now the Marine Drive interchange. I come up to a signal. I then go northbound on the west side of that bridge, do my shopping, come back, and now because it's one way only northbound, I come underneath I-5, I get on the east arterial bridge. How the hell do I get back onto I-5?
No, that's so what you would do is you would use the same bridge to come back.
No, it's only one way.
Same bridge.
Brad just told us it was just northbound.
The bridge on the east side is one way northbound. So the bridge on the west side is two ways. That's correct, right, Brad?
Correct.
So the traffic, if you're leaving Hayden Island, you're using the west side arterial bridge. You're coming to the intersection at Marine Drive. You're making a left at that intersection. You go over I-5, and then you make a left at the next intersection, which is on the east side of I-5, and get onto I-5 on the ramp there.
And then, so if I'm a Bridgeton resident, and again, the use case is I'm going to go over and do my shopping there, I would come up to the interchange at Marine Drive and the Eastern Bridge, And that's two-way, correct? Take a
Eastern
right
Bridge.
hand turn.
That one is
One way.
that one is one way northbound.
Oh, so I have to go through one interchange, then a second interchange.
If you're coming from Bridgeton, you'd be on MLK, going up the page, right?
Right.
That's west. Then you hit the first intersection, the first circle in the lower left. You take a right. One way northbound on the east arterial bridge. Get to Hayden Island, do your shopping. When you return, then you would come on Tomahawk, go on the west arterial bridge as the only bridge that gets you off of Hayden Island back to Marine Drive, and go whichever direction you need to go to get home.
So go through the one intersection and the second intersection, stop at both those lights. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Tom O.
So thank you for the clarification on the east bridge, or the one at the bottom. So with that going to one way, there's really only one way for Hayden Island residents to get off the island. There's the west arterial bridge. I don't know how many lanes it would be going that way. So it seems like the east arterial bridge seems like it seems like much less of an idea than it would have been if it was a two-way bridge, because it would seem to me that the whole point of not having an interchange at all is you still have a couple ways to get on and off the island, but now you have one way to get off the island.
Right.
Trying to imagine what that's going to look like in the traffic data study that's coming, but that definitely, in my non-engineer anecdotal opinion, feels like a very large step back.
Thank you, Tom. So the queue is Amy and then Michael.
I'm just wondering, in all these, I'm noticing that the big dark blue line is going down MLK. So am I clear in that in all 5 of these, there's not going to be traffic besides local traffic on Marine Drive?
Marine Drive, east or west of I-5?
East of I-5. If a large truck was getting off, then they're going to go straight down MLK and do their thing.
I think you're probably correct, just because Marine Drive is not providing any direct connection to MLK or a through trip to Marine Drive. You can go, back to Vancouver Way or various other routes to get to the interchange in the bottom left.
Is that what it is now?
No, now you can get to Marine Drive right at that intersection of Vancouver, Marine Drive, MLK. That fairly complicated intersection. You can do that today. You can't do it in.
So this prioritizes big, heavy through traffic on MLK. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Michael.
So just to be clear, what we're talking about here is if somebody is coming from Vancouver and they want to go to the beautiful Jansen Beach Center or anywhere else on Hayden Island, they would come all the way across the bridge, then go all the way to Marine Drive, and then loop around, wait at an intersection with all of Corky's friends' trucks, and then get through that, and then go all the way back to Hayden Island. Is that what I'm understanding? It feels a little bit like pin the tail on the donkey, where we've been spinning around and trying to navigate this. Seems a little challenging for people who just want to get to the island. That's the challenge with this scheme, it seems.
Brad?
Yeah, I think the only difference is, and Michael, were you were you asking for traffic coming from the north or specifically from Vancouver?
Well,
or-
I mean, the point still holds, but yeah, I was just, it feels like it'll feel like somebody missed their exit when they go all the way across and then have to loop all the way around. It just feels like it's asking a lot of potential shoppers, visitors, friends, neighbors. I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding that's what we're talking about here for number 5.
Sure,
Alright.
yeah, and I want to make sure that I'm perfectly clear on that. Sam, I'll just clarify this. If you're coming southbound on I-5, yes, you would go across the island, across North Portland Harbor, and then get off of I-5. But then all you would have to do is go through the single intersection at Marine Drive, and then across the arterial bridge to Tomahawk Island Drive. So you are going past and coming back, but there's only one way to get on and off, and it would be a direct shot from the ramp.
All right, so the queue is Eric and then Tom O'Connor. Eric.
In the previous presentation that you made to us, as we talked about the no interchange option, one of the comments coming from the engineers was that the 2 arterial bridges would not have capacity to handle existing traffic. That was on one of the slides. Why are we even considering something that's not even going to have the capacity to handle existing traffic?
Our preliminary numbers shows that there is a lot of traffic, as many of you have pointed out, and we are documenting those reasons with our analysis. So I believe I said before, this option likely does not operate well.
So, Sam, just for the benefit of time, I would urge us to look at the other options even more carefully than option 5, if that's already deemed to be fairly unlikely.
Right, so we will consider that. I think I'm going to call on Tom O'Connor and then Robin, but I think given the time constraints, we really have to buzz through the 2 remaining columns, which are local connectivity and this shared use path, so that we can give all of these. And yeah, I mean, it looks like, there's not a whole heck of a lot of enthusiasm for option 5, but we don't have all the data in. We haven't talked about all the elements. So I think we're going to have to suspend disbelief for the moment and trudge on. So Tom O'Connor, you're up.
Thanks, Sam. Tom O works. I think we are talking local connectivity. That's actually the primary concern that I have with this, where if you want to take the east arterial bridge, you're sharing the intersection with folks who want to go northbound on I-5 off the Marine Drive, which, as we all know, is a very busy place. So it almost seems like this this east arterial bridge is it's not a bridge in the sense that the west arterial bridge is at all. It's one way. You're sharing the on-ramp for the freeway. It doesn't seem to do a great many things that the west arterial bridge would do. So I'm with Eric. I think this is, hopefully the data will support the anecdotal opinion that this is a non-option. From my perspective, I mean, one way off the island, just going to say it again. I don't see that happening.
Thanks, Tom. Robin.
Yeah, from a safety perspective, only having one way off the island is terrifying. But I'm curious, the folks that are making these decisions, and Sam and Brad and anybody else that is part of the staff on this planning, how many of you have come up here and driven these ramps and these on and off the island, over Vancouver, all of this stuff we're talking about? How many of you have actually lived it at different times of the day so that you get a sense of what it is we're trying to fix, besides the fact that we need to replace the bridge before it falls in the river.
So I'll first turn it over to Brad or Casey, and then see what Tom has to say, and I will respond as well. So Brad or Casey?
I'll probably speak up because I have maybe spent the most time out of our, unless someone lives there, and I don't remember where you live, Tom, but I do live in Vancouver, and I use this interchange as well as Marine Drive frequently, and as well as I've studied the area for quite some years, all hours of the day, pretty much. I haven't lived there, so I can't say I know as much as people that live there on that, but I do pay attention pretty closely to how that experience goes.
And just because of the constraints of time, Robin, I have no technical expertise at all. I'm making no decisions whatsoever. I'm just facilitating these particular meetings. And one of the reasons the project convened this community working group is to get that firsthand lived experience of what it's like on the island day in or day out. But your point is well taken. You live it, and you'll live the impacts of it. And so that's why we're listening to you. All right, we do really need to go on, and Tom, I'm going to ask you to buzz through local connectivity for the 5 options, in part because we have you've discussed some of them in the other contexts here.
Yes. Okay. I'll try to keep this in a nutshell. Option 1. So everything in the magenta or the purple color is what we're considering local connectivity. And so let's see, what do we want to, the highlights here are the fact that on the Marine Drive side, the arterial bridge, which would also be that local connection, goes underneath Marine Drive. There's not a direct connection there. So that would go under and become North Expo Road. And in this scheme, because of the full interchange on Hayden Island, it's not possible to extend the Tomahawk Island Drive up the center of the island. The local road connections would happen on Jansen in option 1. You'd also have that option on the Hayden Island Drive, but presumably you'd have higher volumes of traffic there because that's where your on and off ramps are located. Brad, is there anything else you wanted to mention on this before we move on? I want to brief these too quickly. Okay. Nothing. Let me move on to option 2 then. The big difference with option 2 is the fact that there is Tomahawk Island Drive going through the center of Hayden Island. And again, on this one, the arterial or the ramps accessing Hayden Island are happening on Hayden Island Drive and Jansen Drive. So therefore, Tomahawk Island Drive becomes somewhat more of a local street for local circulation on the island. As far as the Marine Drive and the Bridgeton side, it's pretty much the same as option 1. And then
I'm going to ask you, Tom, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and finish all the local connectivity options, and then I'll come back and pick up Tom and Robin. And Eric.
Okay, sounds good.
So go to
option 3 then. Again, the connection from Bridgeton to Expo Road goes underneath Marine Drive. The local street grid on Hayden Island is, again, pretty much the same as option 2, the difference being that Jansen Drive is really the focus for on and off traffic coming from the north to the island. So now you have Tomahawk Island Drive and Hayden Island Drive as more local streets with generally lower traffic volumes than you would on Jansen Drive, which would be accepting all that traffic coming from the north, coming to the island and leaving the island. And let's go to option 4. Option 4 introduces the second bridge, the second arterial bridge over North Portland Harbor on the east side. And what this does is provide a direct connection that's not connected to any of the freeway ramps from the Bridgeton area across to Hayden Island. And that bridge connects with the new Tomahawk Island Drive extension in the center of the island. The dashed lines indicate the potential for that street as well as the arterial bridge on the west side to connect through to Hayden Island Drive to potentially create a more complete street grid. Most everything else stays the same. And then next, option 4, please. Option 5, I mean. Option 5, we pretty much covered when we were talking about the bridges. Again, the connection to Hayden Island is via Marine Drive. In this option, Tomahawk Island Drive would really be your arterial connection on Hayden Island, and your outer streets, your Jansen Drive and your Hayden Island Drive on the north and south sides of the island would be your more local street connections.
All right, thank you for that. The queue that I have up here is Tom Dana, Robin Smith, Eric is third, and I thought I had a fourth. Oh, there it is, Tom H. So Tom Dana, take it away.
Yeah, I just, is the suggestion that an intersection with a circle around it is a stoplight? Is that what you're saying here? That's confusing to me, what you're talking about.
Not for the purple lines. That's just indicating where intersections would be occurring, but it's not to infer that every single one of those intersections would be signalized.
But the ones on the arterial roads are signalized. Is that what you're saying?
The dark blue ones would be, yes.
Okay.
That's correct. The dark blue ones.
Eric.
So I'm trying again just to visualize and be able to put into words for our neighbors how this is going to operate. So I'll start with the base case, and I'm going to talk about impedance points, places where you have to yield to traffic or come to a stop or a signalized intersection. If you live in the apartments in the west side of town, you come out to Anchor Way, you stop, that's impedance point number 1. Take a right-hand turn, not that bad. You stay in the right-hand lane, go through the yield lane, come up onto the bridge, go underneath, and you're on your way. And at 9:30 in the morning, that's pretty okay. So that has one impedance point. In getting to southbound, you do the same thing, but then you would stop at the intersection for the light in the left-hand lane to go onto southbound. In each of these instances, if we were looking at getting from the west end of Bridgeton, what you would have to do is in option number 1, what you would have to do is come out, take a right-hand turn, take a left-hand turn onto Vancouver Way, come some distance backwards, meaning eastbound, to a yet-to-be-built street, right? Take a right-hand turn onto MLK, come up to the signal, and then get on to I-5 North under option 1. And what you would have is you would have now a total of 7 impedance points and a lot of backflow traffic to get over to the island. Am I reading this correctly?
To get to the island from Bridgeton, you could take the local road to the arterial bridge and right on
No,
the
I
arterial
can't.
bridge,
No,
and then come across to the island.
no, you can't. There's no intersection there.
That's for coming from Bridgeton,
Right,
correct? Is that your question?
right. There's no intersection there. Once you get onto Marine Drive going westbound, the next intersection.
Oh, no, you wouldn't have. Right, you wouldn't need to get onto Marine Drive. So what I'm talking about is you see the purple line that's to the right of Marine Drive. That would be the local street that would go underneath I-5, and there's an intersection at the arterial bridge right there. Where the
Right.
point is.
So let's deal with getting on Interstate 5 going northbound. Start over here at Anchor Way in Bridgeton. Right. You would go take a right, come up here, take a left onto Vancouver Way, come eastbound to a yet to be built street, take a right, take another right, come up here to the intersection.
That's correct.
Okay.
Get onto I-5.
So that goes from fairly easy to 7 impedance points. And why would anybody in the neighborhood accept that additional backflow?
So it's possible that nobody would, and then this option, this element would score poorly. So
Sam, this is true about all of these. What you're doing with this option, with the way that you've dealt with Marine Drive, is you've created the West End in Boston with the central artery cutting us off. We become a peninsula.
And so I get it, and I'm sorry, but we just have to get other people's comments in and get the rest of the information. So if none of these work, then that's what we want to hear when it comes time to the polling. If they're not working for you, we need to hear it. And I'm confident you'll share it.
Hey, Sam, I don't want to dispute what he's saying, but I did want to offer just the difference in that. And that is, I hope you can hear me, my audio changed. But the difference from today in that is that today you try to get to I-5 and the Marine Drive interchange is stopped and causes problems in the peak periods back onto Marine Drive, local Marine Drive and Vancouver Way, right? That intersection has a problem even in those times. Right. The reason that moves away, those kind of new ramps that you were talking about off of North Vancouver Way, it has to be moved away from the interchange in order to gain that safe access onto MLK. So you're right, it is an extra move to turn left onto Vancouver Way. And then it's a right turn and a merge lane up to speed to get onto I-5 and a right turn before you get to the signal.
All right, thank you for that. Tom, thank you for your patience. Tom H.
I was just looking to confirm which of these options, if we live in Bridgeton and we want to get to Hayden Island, I'm seeing options 1, 2, and 4 give us direct access to Hayden Island on a sort of a simplified route, but options 3 and 5 complicate our access to Hayden Island.
Is that a fair summary, Brad?
Yeah, I think that's true. It's a good summary.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks so much. So next up are the shared use path. And Tom, take it away.
Okay, so I'll try and be even more brief with this. The green lines show the shared use path. This would be any form of active transportation. The arrows show connection points or where it would extend. And then what in particular to option 1, going from the Oregon mainland, or where the 40-mile loop is, you would come across the arterial bridge and then loop around. As you can see, the green line kind of loops around and then gets up onto the bridge on the east side of the bridge. So in this particular option, getting from the Marine Drive area to cross over the bridge, you basically need to use the arterial bridge, the local streets on Hayden Island, and then loop around on a dedicated path that brings you up onto the bridge. Go to the next option, please. Okay, so in this option, we're using the bridge structure, the ramp structure on the east side to get the shared use path across North Portland Harbor. And it basically would stay elevated. So the line moving to the right of the page, ending in the arrowhead, is the elevated shared use path coming up to the bridge. And then the kind of squiggle line that comes off the bottom of that down to the area that's labeled Neighborhood Retail Center, that would be the route that would bring you down to Hayden Island from that elevated path. So that path would be generally, what that does is it keeps people walking or rolling from having to come down to the island and then go back up onto the bridge when they cross the river. Let's go to option 3, please. Option 3 generally does the same thing as option 2, but it does it on the west side. So again, there's you can see the east-west access along the North Portland Harbor. Then there's kind of a squiggle U-turn that comes off of that, brings you up to the arterial bridge. That path would stay elevated and then connect into the I-5 bridge going across the river. And then what looks like a little curly Q that comes off the top of that on Hayden Island, that would be some sort of a ramp structure that would bring people back down to Hayden Island. Again, with the idea that for walking and rolling traffic moving across the river, it allows them to stay on those elevated structures without having come down to the island and then go back up again. And then let's go to the next one, please. This one uses that local arterial or local bridge on the east side. Again, keeping that traffic elevated, or that walking and rolling traffic elevated to get onto the bridge on the east side with a ramp access down to the island. There's also would be local access, shared use path that would be able to access across the arterial bridge on the west side as well. And then finally, option 5. Option 5 also uses the arterial bridge on the east side. And it's important to note that the shared use path would be a separated structure. It would not be lanes, it would not be within the travel lanes across that bridge. But this would also function similar to options 3 and 4.
All right, before we move on, we do have one question from Tom Hickey, wondering if we can discuss the elevation of these various elements. Tom, were you referring to the paths or all of the elements that we've discussed today?
Well, we're looking at this all in 2 dimensions, and obviously the third dimension is critical for understanding this completely. And some things are over the top of other things. I'm thinking mostly in terms of how does the elevation of the interstate fit Hayden Island, and which of these choices, or do any of these choices affect any of those questions? I mean, and then the arterial bridges obviously don't have to reach the same height as the as the main bridge, because the main bridge has to be, 100 feet in the air by the time it reaches the crest of the Columbia River. But does it start rising on the mainland, and then by the time it hits Hayden Island, it's 50 feet in the air, or how does this all work?
In all of these options, it would be at the same level of the bridge going across North Portland Harbor, whichever respective bridge that it's on. It starts to rise once you get on to Hayden Island. So in this scheme, there's you see the green arrow kind of diverge. There's kind of a little green triangle. The angled part of that is meant to indicate the segment that ramps up to the bridge, where the other piece is kind of coming down to Tomahawk Island Drive. But that's where that. Yeah, go ahead.
I think Tom was asking about the entire design, not just the bridge. Is that right, Tom Hickey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to get into the third dimension here in general and understand. So for instance, the little curly Q at the upper right in the green, that's a shared use path, I'm assuming is a descending ramp off of an elevated level, and I'm trying to understand what is that descent? What are we talking about there?
Well, and that will.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Right. I was just going to say that'll need to be determined based on the bridge design. And Brad, if you want to add a little more detail there, if you can.
Yeah, I wish we had a lot more time to get into this. At that location, so on the north side of Hayden Island, it is starting to climb because we need to get over the main channel of the river. I don't remember what the exact elevations are or how much higher it is than today. Unfortunately, I can't answer that question right now.
So, but you're saying that as we cross the North Channel, we're substantially the same as we are now with all the new bridges will be substantially the same as we are now.
No, I was going to continue a little bit in my statement. When earlier, I can't remember who it was, asked about Jansen Drive and what Jansen Drive was going to do. And we talked about it not having the dip, being straighter, if you remember that conversation. So Tomahawk Island Drive could be the same thing, right? If it's a question of how low do we want the highway, but we also need those roads crossing under the highway. So there's a lot more decisions that need to be made, but our thoughts is that from a local street perspective, it might be good to have those streets stay at a constant elevation, and therefore I-5 would be higher than it is today. But there's still a lot more discussion that needs to be had about that third dimension and what it truly looks like as we really are thinking about North Portland Harbor before the bridge starts climbing. We know on the north side of Hayden Island, it's going to be a lot higher. It has to be. But the details of what it looks like between Tomahawk and over Jansen and Marine Drive, it matches again at Marine Drive. So what it looks like between Marine Drive and Tomahawk is yet to be determined. But in our thought, it would be higher than it is today so that we can facilitate getting Tomahawk Island Drive underneath, which it can't do today.
Thank you.
All right, so the queue, so people know, is Robin, Corky, Tom H, and Eric.
So as an avid bicyclist who used to ride south off of Hayden Island to get to work and used to ride south of Hayden Island all the time, but now actually got a bottle thrown at me in the tunnel and am terrified to ride south off of Hayden Island. How many of these have tunnels in this planning for where this bike path is going to go? I'm all supportive of having a bike path, but it needs to be safe. It needs to be open. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be where people of all different shapes, sizes, and colors can feel safe using the path without feeling like they're going into a deep, dark tunnel that they might not come back out of.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Robin. I've ridden this probably a little bit less than a year ago, and it is quite a different experience than having ridden it in the years past. These schemes are obviously, there's underpasses where the trail will go underneath either the freeway or different streets, but we're looking at how to minimize it so that it's more of you're going under a bridge rather than you're going through a tunnel. So, you know, the connection, particularly on Hayden Island, is one that does not, you know, even in the middle of the day, it's not something you feel safe riding through. What these are trying to do is look at ways where you wouldn't have that kind of I'm riding through a tunnel effect. So
Yeah,
that's all being looked at by our active transportation team.
Yeah, and not just that one tunnel that's on the island, but as you go south, there's that area. If you wanted to go over to Bridgeton, you know, in that direction, it's not safe in there either. So please don't design one of those.
You're right.
No,
Thanks, Robin.
I am completely with you there.
Corky.
I had essentially the same question that Tom Hickey had, but I guess it kind of boils down to at this stage is, I assume there's a maximum elevation gain that's guaranteed here. Do we know what that is? Or am I right that there is I mean, from a legal perspective, that you can't have any greater than a certain level of elevation gain? And then my follow-up to that is there a, it may be too soon to say this, but is there a big difference in that elevation gain between these options as you see them right now? Or do we just need to wait for that?
I think, are you talking about like the profile of I-5 and what it's doing between Marine Drive and the river?
Yeah, talking about just the total elevation gain from, let's say, starting at, Vancouver Way, you know, up to till you get onto the bridge north of Hayden Island.
I don't, that's a good question.
Okay, Brad's frozen. Hopefully he can reconnect. I'm going to go on and.
Hey, Sam, I can add just a little bit while he's frozen.
Go, Casey.
So for the active transportation, we don't want to design, can't design over 5%. We want to stay around 4.5%. We really want to stay a lot less in grade than that. So where you're not coming off a very high structure, we want to maintain as low as grade as possible. The squiggly line on the right side, for instance, might have to be up there so that we try to get down with inefficiency of that. But again, wouldn't be over 5%, more than the 4.5%.
And so I guess that's what I was wondering is, do you see right now between these options, is one of them keep bumping you up at 4.5%, but two of the others are at 2%? Just in general, do you see a big difference, or are we just too early in the process for that?
I would say it's probably too early to tell you any significant difference. That's probably the smart way to go at the moment. So,
yeah.
All right, Eric.
Under the stack bridge option, would you continue the stack bridge across Hayden Island and across North Portland Harbor? And would that have any impact on any of these shared use pathways?
Brad, you back?
I think we may have lost.
So Casey, could you handle that for me?
Oh, he dropped.
I'm here.
He's
back.
back.
Did you hear that one, or you want me to try to go? Stack bridge. Right now, the stack bridge option doesn't go across Hayden Island. I think we get ramps coming off or on Hayden Island still, right? But it also depends on which option. So I think it's still. Brad, you can maybe fill in a little bit more there, but
The stacked option it is unstacking as it gets onto Hayden Island. So like say over Hayden Island Drive, it's unstacking. The options for the shared use path are all fairly similar.
Okay.
One thing though to consider with the stacked option is that it's not compatible with the full interchange options. So it would work with options 3, 4, and 5, would not work with options 1 and 2.
Because
I should remember this, detailed designs about how I think it's the elevation that needs to be gained between
the upper deck.
The upper
The
deck
distance
and
of
the
the upper
ramps.
deck, right.
It's a really detailed question and answer. I mean,
All right, so
Thank you.
thank you, Eric. So I'm going to call on Ellen, and then we're going to fly through transit options. We're going to see if we can take your pulse and then go through the closing slides and get us out as close to 7 as humanly possible. So Ellen, take it away.
All right. God, I hate to sound negative here, but I have a statement to read from Hayden Island Neighborhood Network. And in your purpose and need statement, the first two you address travel demand and congestion and impaired freight movement. And we don't see how any of this complexity and these interchanges are going to have anything to do with improving either of those. And you also talk about equity and climate change objectives. The previous CRC proposal included 12 lanes, which is double the current situation. And if you are planning to address the 6 objectives listed and still build a new bridge at the current location, we worry that we'll find yourself again in a standoff between the purpose and need statements and equity and climate change. In 2013, it was found that adding these additional lanes would increase the environmental impact to endangered fish habitat on the Columbia River and increase air pollution to vulnerable minority communities in North Portland. And there's also concern for noise pollution and increased traffic congestion on these vulnerable populations in North Portland. So that operation was shut down in 2013 for those concerns and many others. And so now you're talking about equity and vulnerability again and climate change. If you are in fact moving forward where you left off in 2013 when that project was shut down, what are the plans to address air pollution, noise pollution, increased traffic congestion affecting North Portland? The question is, how will that environmental impact and climate change objectives be addressed if the bridge is simply rebuilt in the current location? We're still going to have congestion. Nothing changes because you have all of these complexities and these interchanges. On Monday, my husband and I found ourselves in Vancouver, Washington, about 3 miles from our home on Hayden Island. And we were unable to get home because the I-5 bridge was closed in both directions for many hours. We stopped at a friend's home in Vancouver, and at 4 o'clock we tried to head home again, and it took an enormous amount of time, across the 205. And since there's only 2 bridges that we can cross to get from Portland to the Washington side, there are currently 11 bridges in the Willamette River in Portland and only 2 bridges on the interstate. And in the matter of the I-5 Interstate Bridge Replacement Project, the members of the Hayden Island Neighborhood Network, also known as High Noon, they recognize Neighborhood Association in the city of Portland, located in Multnomah County, state of Oregon, unanimously support a no-build option to be implemented and remain in force until a 3rd alternative I-5 crossing on the Columbia by either a bridge, a tunnel is designed, completed, and operational. We just don't think that all of this, what interchange do you want, is going to do one thing to help congestion or the truck freight. We need a 3rd bridge. And I know you don't want to hear that, but I don't have a choice but to read it. That was voted for unanimously on High Noon on Hayden Island. So
Ellen, Sam,
Ellen,
can I ask Ellen a quick question? So is that okay?
Yeah, just a second here. Okay, Ellen, when was that vote? When did that vote take place?
That took place this morning.
Okay.
They saw
Katie?
the handouts because I keep them up on everything that's going on. And so I sent it to the board
Okay, got it.
and the board said, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work for us.
Got it. Katie?
Real quick question, and of course we could spend lots of time dissecting that and talking about it, but just so I'm clear, was the end, that last little bit of your statement, was that High Noon doesn't support any improvement as proposed until additional crossing is?
That is correct.
Is
They
part of-
said they want a third I-5 crossing across the Columbia River or a tunnel or some way to get across that Columbia, because right now there's only two, and if one of those is blocked, we can't get across. And also the congestion on I-5 is not going to be improved by having a few more interchanges.
Okay, Ellen, I'm going to ask you, since you were reading it, if you could drop it into the chat. That way we have the actual record of what you said. I think it'll be easier than going back and trying to transcribe the tape.
Okay, I will grab that. I probably added a few more words, but I'll go see if I can find it.
I get it. All right, so we're really cutting it
slower?
close here. So Tom, we need to show folks what's going on with the transit stations. And so I'm going to ask you to really do as best as you can in about a 1 minute per slide kind of thing.
2 minutes. 1 minute. Okay. Let's see. Okay.
1 minute per slide.
Okay.
1 minute per slide.
Okay. Well, that's easy, I believe, because most of the simple thing about these options is the transit is generally located in the same place for all of them. The alignment, whether it's the high capacity transit, whether it's BRT or LRT, or the hybrid, is on the west side of the freeway. There would be a connection or an extension from Expo Station, and there would be a station on Hayden Island. So what you see here are the two red dots would be the high capacity transit stations, Expo on the left, Hayden Island on the right. The yellow line is the existing light rail Expo line. And then the red line would be that extension or the BRT coming from Vancouver from the right-hand side of this graphic. The blue lines on here, and as we scroll through these, you'll see these change slightly. The blue lines would be the primary streets connecting to transit. So on the left hand, you would see how, if you were in Bridgeton, how you could access the Expo Center station. And on Hayden Island, what streets would be used to get to the station that would be located on Hayden Island. And I think we probably don't need much more description. We can just go through these. And why don't we move on to option 2 then? Again, the big difference here is on Hayden Island with the introduction of the Tomahawk Island Drive in the center. There would be more access to the station. This is showing the station kind of biased more towards the north side of the island. If you go to option 3. The network here, the street network is the same. The difference is that the station here on Hayden Island is shown on the south side of Tomahawk Island Drive rather than the north side in option 2. And then let's go to option 4. Again, this is largely the same from a connectivity standpoint as option 3. And if we go to option 5, again, very much the same in terms of the connectivity or the access to both of those stations. And I will leave it there and open to any questions on the transit access.
So questions on transit and the access there too. All right, seeing none. Kayla, I'm going to do some audibles here on calling out the issues. So if you could go down to slide 56, please. So again, what you see is that completed matrix that was sent out previously that sums up the current state of the information. The program appreciates and acknowledges that it doesn't have all of the data, doesn't have the elevations yet. Having said that, the goal of these processes was to give an opportunity for this particular community working group a chance to give some feedback, understanding we're at the preliminary stages and more information will be forthcoming. To further that, I'm going to ask you now, Kayla, to go to slide 58. And on the screen, we have what we're calling pulse polling. This is not voting for which is your favorite. And it could be none of the above are what you want to do. But this is designed here to look at the 5 options that were discussed. We have a poll that we can put on the screen. When the poll comes up for each of these options, you can vote a 1, which means you fully support that option. You can vote a 2 is that you support it with suggestions. You can vote a 3, do not support. And you have an option of voting 4, currently unsure. And please look at the beginning of each question, in the moment. So we appreciate this isn't a final binding, poll. It's a pulse poll just to sort of say, what are you thinking or feeling now in the moment? So that is the purpose of it. I'm going to answer a few questions and we'll see if we can get the poll done. Mr. Tom.
There we go. Yeah, this in the moment stuff is really dangerous to do. And what happens is, I've been through this before on the Hayden Island plan, and they kept saying, well, let's put this in for now. And this for the moment, and then you can use this later to say, here's what they wanted, and it never gets modified. It never gets changed. So this is pretty, because we don't have any more meetings. This is your final vote, folks. So you better be right. I'm also on the High Noon board, so I voted against doing this at all until we get a 3rd bridge put in. So anyway, this is really dangerous.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. And so you have the option then of voting 3s that you don't support any of them. That's certainly an option. And certainly number 4, unsure. Any other preliminary comments before we call the question? Mr. O'Connor.
So when these meetings were initially scheduled, I'm wondering if we thought we'd have more data to consider these questions. And I understand Tom's point about the polling and how it's used. So with the traffic data unavailable, not that I'm looking for any more meetings, and I understand the size of this project and people wanting to move on to the next step and say the community work group is done. But there's significant pieces of data that sound like they're being collected now and will be available in a few months. So do we need to be done, or is there another option for us to actually see that data besides just having it one-way information? Thank you.
So I'll turn it over to Katie to respond to that question, Tom. Thank you.
Sure. Great question, Tom. As you know, I think I spoke with you initially when we set these up several months back. At that time, we knew that there was a need to engage the community perspective on a more personal and deeper level, which is how these community working groups got formed, the 4 different ones on specific topics. This is just really intended to be the beginning of that conversation. At that time, we knew, looking at the schedule, that there was going to be some sort of an IBR solution that fundamentally kind of selected the big elements of the program in 2022. And so we really didn't want to wait until we had all of the data to start sharing what we did know with the community, knowing that it is somewhat an incomplete picture, and sharing the design development and information as we have it. With that being said, I certainly recognize kind of the point you made about, yeah, that's great, but it is an incomplete picture and there's going to be more information coming. And now you're telling us that we're done with these meetings. So what I'll say to that is we had identified the 2 meetings initially, and that was the same schedule and system for all 4 of the groups. Is very likely that we will reach out and ask if you would be willing to continue in this conversation and work with us, maybe as soon as I would say February, and then maybe again another meeting in the spring. That's highly likely at this point. And so that's something, look to that. And at that point, yes, we would have that data available and be able to kind of drill down into that next level of detail.
Thank you.
Okay,
Katie.
thank you.
All right, so we have the pollsters ready to go. We're not going to show the slides. Kayla, we're not going to show the slides. We're just going to keep this slide up and ask the rest of the staff member to put the first poll, which is asking about option number 1. And let me, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This looks like what we're going to have as voting numbers. So Katie, for the poll results, we have 5 people voting 1 person voting 2 people voting 3, and 4, and 3 people voting 4. All right, next poll, please.
Can we actually show the results to that?
We just, it just was up on the screen, and there it is.
There we go. Thanks. I didn't see the percentages on mine. Great.
Yeah, Sam, the participants are unable to see the results until we share them.
Got it. So I'll
Thank you.
stop sharing. All right, so can you show the second poll, please? And that seems to be the critical mass of 11. So I'll end the poll. I'll share the results. And there you go, Katie, for your records. It's 18, 55, 9, and 18 for the percentages. I'll stop sharing that and ask to go to the third poll, which of course is option 3. And Kayla, meanwhile, you can advance, please, to slide 66 in the background. And there's our 11 there, and sharing the results, we have 9%, 9%, 73%, and 9%. So I'll stop sharing there. And next question, please. And this, of course, is the option 4. We're looking for one more vote. We have 10 of the 11. And there we go. Thank you for that. Let me share the results of that for Katie's records, and she's going to give us a summary at 0, 27, 45, and 27. 0, 27, 45, and 27. I'll stop sharing that. I will then go to ask for option 5. Looking for 2 more votes. And there it is. We've got, got the 11. I'll share the poll results here. And they are 0, 0, 91, and 9. 0, 0, 91, and 9 means 10 people did not support option 5, and 1 person is currently unsure. Thank you for that. I'll get out of that. And Katie, do you have a master slide to show folks so you can see all of this? And of course, this will be all part of the meeting record and meeting notes, so you have an opportunity to do that.
Trying to share here. There we go.
And there it is. So gives a pretty good breakdown of what you all think about these various options. Again, it's a post poll, it's preliminary, doesn't include all the data, more information to come. So thank you for that, Katie. If you can stop sharing your screen and go back to the PowerPoint, I will get through the rest with all deliberate speed. So, you know, we are still in the community engagement portion of this, where, as Katie indicated, they'll look forth to the IBR solution and potential for other CWG meetings. The design stage will be in 2024. And assuming that design gets all the permits and issues in 2025, construction begins. The next slide gives us an opportunity to look at the design options survey. So this is ongoing for 3 more days. It's to get broader community input. Translations are available in 8 different languages, and we encourage you to share that design survey information and link with everyone and spread the word to get more input as possible. The next slide talks about our open house. Those are live now and provides potential design options, the timeline, what have you. Again, translations are available, and we encourage you to spread the word on that. The additional engagement opportunities are as usual. There's social media, the newsletter, the emails to do follow-up comments. You'll be able to find the recording materials and a summary of what happened today as soon as it's available by going to that particular website. And the final slide is to wish you all a sincere thank you for your time, patience, and dedication. We blew through the break and we acknowledge that this is tough work and we appreciate the input. On behalf of the project and myself, we wish you a happy holiday season and look forward to a wonderful new year. If everyone can give the Holiday Rose Festival wave, we'll sign off and go forth, do good, avoid evil, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so very much. Take care.